Now, if people out there, some people, when they listen to this program, if they're really meticulous listeners, they usually know that on this corresponding Tuesday every month, it's usually Steve Millington, then Grant Lobes. But Grant Lobes does have some county business to do today, so he had to come in early, and we flip flop. Steve Millington actually had more time with the cattle this morning that way. It's 7 minutes after 9 o'clock. Oh, call it. Yeah, I think it just turned 9:07, and we're up to 50 already. It's still a little cloudy and rainy in some spots, I guess, around the county this morning. But first of all, Steve Millington, welcome back to the program.
Thanks. Good to be here.
You were at that San Diego Zoo last week, right?
Yes, I was, in fact, exactly at San Diego Zoo. And they have some interesting um, differences down there. We got down there in an extraordinary hot spell, pushing 90 degrees for a high and the 95% humidity.
Now, normally
Oh,
San Diego is considered to be cooler, right?
they told us, I had no point of reference, but in making inquiries, questions, they said, oh, this is about 10 or 12 degrees warmer than we normally have this time of year. Oh, it was very hot, sometimes a little bit on the awful side. But we survived, got out of there, and made it home.
You're back home, and of course, back into to the political business. Uh,
Yeah.
I have a number of people coming through the studio this week who are candidates for Twin Falls City Council. Now, that is a nonpartisan election, so you don't really get involved with that. I mean, obviously, it's more like just being an observer. You keep an eye on things that are going on. Other than that, we've got a couple of hot elections in some local towns too, as well.
Kimberly's got some city council elections, and Twin has a big list of
Yeah,
candidates there.
bigger than a baseball team with all the people who are running.
It's interesting. We kind of do not give the local races, like a city election race, uh, the attention that they should have. But really, this is where people really need to get involved and really need to get out and vote. This is kind of close to home, and this is where you can have your biggest impact with your votes is right here at home. If you don't like the way things are going in the city offices, city administration, now's your time. Get out there, get inquiring, ask who's running, what's their positions, get involved. This is where it starts, right here, locally.
I know that elections, people, there's a couple of really big issues in the city and the region this year. One of them would be refugee resettlement. But I got to be honest with you, I don't think it has any impact in the city council race. I'll tell you why. Because I think people, when they vote in city or town elections, they vote because of the condition of their sidewalks. Do the streets get plowed when it snows? And those are the issues that they're concerned about.
And how much do my property taxes go up? Now that the property taxes, um, some of us see those statements twice a year. One in December 20th, one on June 20th. Many people just make a monthly payment to the escrow holder on their mortgage, and the escrow holder just makes the payment to the
Right, I do it that way as well.
and so you hardly ever see it. But those who look at that and say to themselves, "Holy cow, I'm going to spend 3, 4, 5, 10, $15,000 in property taxes," then all of a sudden they say, "Wait a minute, it's time for me to find out what these people are doing." So you're right. What do my roads look like and sidewalks, and how much taxes am I paying to get that done, comparatively speaking? Is it going up? Is it going down? And most of us, nearly everybody will get a property tax evaluation assessment fee, and it'll say, okay, your property has been assessed at X amount of money, 100 or 120, and last year it was 105, and so your taxes will go up accordingly. So that's where they really get concerned. But there's a lot of other things locally that we need to be apprised of, in addition to roads and streets and sidewalks and so forth. What's the attitude and what is the philosophy of the city towards growth? Are we looking for businesses to come to town? What kind of businesses? What kind of industries would that bring? And what would be the impact in our community, in our area? We've gone through this a couple of times. We had Chobani show up 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and they still have a nice facility out here, and they're running real hard, and they've got a lot of people out there on the payroll. Well, those people spend their money locally. That's good for the retail segment. There's a lot of property taxes generated. That helps the financial thing for the governmental agencies. So as we look at local entities, um, what peel the covers back just one or two and see what's down underneath there. What do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And
See, this is where I think the election in Kimberly, which I haven't been able to follow as much as I'd like, but Janice Degner told me about it a couple of weeks ago. She said it is one of the hottest elections. There's a small community that has seen explosive growth,
a lot of growth.
and a lot of that actually is impacted because they're also the proximity to Chobani and some of these
Yes,
other
they are.
new businesses. And so what you've got is you've got the old downtown, and you've almost got an entirely similar sized new part of town sitting just off to the one edge.
And that's what we normally see in these kind of situations. To some extent, Twin Falls has the same thing. We have the old town or the downtown area, then we have the Blue Lakes Strip, and it took off 20, 25 years ago and has just exploded. Well, Kimberly has the same thing. There is no space in the old developed area of downtown Kimberly. They moved where that there was empty space, and that's where they grew. And so you see this growth moving into these non-old areas, and people are saying, "Gee whiz, what's going on?" Now, there's another thing in Kimberly. Boy, I hope I'm right on this. I think they're going to have a bond election in Kimberly. Was it $25 million for a wastewater treatment facility? At the present time, Kimberly has an arrangement through Twin Falls, and they just transfer all of their effluent to the Twin Falls system. But Twin Falls is outgrowing theirs. So in order to balance everything, Kimberly is going to have to put in a system to get up to taking care of their own wastewater problems. $25 million is a whole lot of money.
Yes, it is.
But that's not unusual. Buell went through this same kind of thing a few years ago, and they had a water upgrade, and they had a wastewater upgrade, and it was huge amounts of money. And so the monthly utility bill in Buell is very high, comparatively speaking. Now, Filer went through the same thing more recently in the last 3 to 5 years, and their rates have gone up. Now, Kimberly is facing that same issue, and their rates will go, if it's passed, their rates will go up accordingly. Now, the big question is it going to get passed? Because most property owners don't see that as a critical point yet. Now, they will do when Twin Falls City says, we're done. You can't download your waste into our system anymore. We're overloaded. And that'll happen when somebody comes to the city of Twin Falls and says, you're reaching your maximum capacity of throughputs in your facility. Well, the first thing we do is throw Kimberly out because we want Twin Falls to continue to be a growing, viable city. And so all these things are going to keep coming. So Kimberly is going to, and that's going to be a big issue in Kimberly. Do we really need that? Do we have to do it? Why? And various, I have not followed the candidates for office in Kimberly, so I really don't know what their positions are, who's for it, who's against it, or where it's going to go. I just have read little blurbs here and there, and I know it's coming, and it's not going to be any fun.
Pretty town with a lot of growth going on. We have another caller with us. It's 49 at 9:15, and of course, Steve Millington joining me, Bill Colley in studio on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. And caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, Steve, you mentioned keeping an eye on local issues, and you mentioned taxes and various things like that. You also mentioned Buell and the water district. I don't live in the city out there, so that doesn't affect me. But I've heard rumors. I haven't seen anything official, but it sounds like the Buell School District is going to be trying to push through a third bond or levy or whatever they call it in a row, 3 years in a row. And I don't know. There's just some people out there that don't have the money to be able to handle that, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
I have to admit that I am not up to speed on the Buell School District. I don't know whether it's a mill levy override or whether they're actually going after a bond. Now, there's Mill levy override is an emergency thing. It's a 1 year. Gee whiz, we got too many students. We got to have an extra $500,000 to $1 million to pay our operating expense for the current school year. The other thing that they have is called maintenance levies, and those normally are 2 to 4 years in length. We need an extra $1 million. We'll take it $500,000 at a shot this year and next year, and that should solve our problem. The third issue is, oh dear, we've got to build a whole brand new school, and that's going to be $10 to $50 million, and we'll do it over a 20-year bond placement. I hate to express my ignorance, but I have not. I know that they are considering it. I thought it was a maintenance over a levy, so it would be for multiple years, 2 to 3 years, and it would just be for a certain amount. It's interesting that the costs of everything just seem to keep going higher and higher and higher, but the income to pay for those costs seems to have stagnated or actually decreased. And if you look at the average income per household at the end of George W. Bush administration in 2008, it was like 55.5 to 56,000 per household. The latest number, and I think it was the end of 14. That number is now down to just over 50, between 50 and 51. So there's been a $5,000 per household decrease in earnings, but costs continue to go up and up and up. And the caller's right. At what point do we simply say, holy Moses, this thing is out of control?
We got about 45 seconds before the break. We're going to let someone at least get a question on the air before the break. And you're up next at 9:18. You're on the air with Steve Millington and Bill Colley.
Hi, Bill. Good morning, and good morning, Steve. Billy Dingus from the Magic Valley Republican Women, and I just wanted to invite both of you to the Clear Lake Country Club luncheon at noon tomorrow. Attorney General Lawrence Wasden will be there talking about different lawsuits that the state of Idaho is involved in, and it should
now,
be
is this free?
Yeah.
Well, you have to buy your own. You have to buy your own lunch, and that's a modest fee. If I remember right, it's $10 or $12 or something. Is that right, Billy?
That's right, but I tell you what, if I could get Bill Colley there, I probably would buy his lunch.
Oh, so now, but what about me, Billy?
We've gotten around that I'm a cheapskate.
I have to pay my own way, but Bill gets in free. Holy cow.
We've got a break coming up. Steve Millington, Twin Falls County Republican Chairman, in studio with us. It's 49 on what has been a bit of a rainy morning, but things will be clearing out. And I hope you can stick around. We've got more with Steve on the way. Our studio guest is Steve Millington. He's the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party, joining us as he does on Tuesday mornings on Top Story, on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Telephone number 736-0300. Did I mention my name, too? Bill Colley. Most people probably have picked up on that now after 10 months.
Bill who?
Yeah, I do get a little of that still.
An interesting, if I could just kind of get in here, an interesting little thing. Our previous caller mentioned that the Magic Valley Republican Women, see, we have two groups. We have the Magic Valley Republican Women and the Southern Idaho Republican Women. I get them confused. But they are having a meeting on Wednesday, tomorrow, at the Clear Lake Country Club out in Buell. Well, the speaker there is going to be Lawrence Wasden. That's the state attorney general. And then next Monday night, the Southern Idaho Republican Women are going to have their meeting, and it's held at the Turf Club at 5:30. And the speaker there is going to be Lori Otter. Well, one of the interesting things we have here in the Magic Valley, and we should not overlook it, we have an attorney general coming down here to visit about lawsuits that the state of Idaho is facing, and we're facing another real big one right now, because if you remember, Governor Otter did not like the arrangement that the Department of Interior came up with
the sage grouse.
Well, the sage grouse thing, and it was David Leroy called it the greatest land grab in the history of mankind. Well, he's going to fight that one, so there's a lawsuit coming there. Lori Otter's big thing is education and children's learning. But we have the opportunity to have what I would consider to be well-placed political people, Attorney General, First Lady, come to our area and talk with us about issues that they feel are important. And so we talk about, get involved in local politics, city councils, school districts, school boards. Well, here's an opportunity to listen and ask questions and become better informed on some issues that are not going to go away. They're going to stay with us for a while, and they're going to have a lot of impact. Take advantage of those things and go listen, ask some questions, become better informed. So there's my 2-bit speech.
We were talking a little earlier about some elections coming up, and I would like to get to a caller here. So hopefully I've got an election question. We'll still have time. We've got about 4 minutes before the break. But our caller first, you're on the air. Steve Millington's in studio with us on News Radio 1310 KLIX. And what's on your mind?
Yeah, a lot of the expense that's coming to these local communities, Castleford, Buell, and Twin Falls, has been the EPA's non-scientific pushing this arsenic thing into these cities' water supplies. And, of course, the EPA doesn't work on science. It just works on control. And it's costing Twin Falls residents, I think, $23 million over several years, Buell and so forth. But it's just ridiculous that this is based on non-science. Nobody wants to do a pushback. The EPA keeps getting more money. Our congressional people just seem to think that it's fine just to keep funding these bureaucrats. And the other thing that I'd like to point out, though, with Lori Otter and the education, with Common Core, it needs to be stopped in the state of Idaho. Common Core is bringing Islam teachings right into the classroom. Can't teach anything about Christianity, but you're going to teach about Muslim, Islam religion. It's part of Common Core, and people need to be aware of that. So, we need to be involved in these things, but we need to have some pushback, stop funding these doggone things, and get Common Core and some of these things out of our classrooms. And,
well, on that note, Common Core is actually being reconsidered at the state level.
There's a lot of pushback. Now, I did have an occasion while I was gone last week to pick up a newspaper or two and look at it, and there's an awful lot of concern in of all places in the world, for heaven's sakes, in California, about what's this doing to our school systems, and they didn't say point blank we need to get rid of it, we need to go back to what we had before, or we need to modify it, but they were raising lots of questions. Did you know that? Or what happens with this thing? And I thought to myself, well, this is real interesting. This is the hotbed, the bastion of liberal thinking here, California, yippee-i-yo, and they're raising these questions. Now, I don't know whether the writer was just being cynical, or whether he was really saying, people, you need to get informed on this and start looking at it. This is not a good thing. The other thing that I noticed an awful lot, and this was in Utah, flew in and out of the Salt Lake airport, so you drive down there. Utah's got some measures on their ballot, I think in November, where they want to raise a tax, and it was not explained to me, but it's local roads only. And so they're proposing a tax, and I'm assuming it's either on a county or a regional basis, where they would increase taxes, and all of that money would go specifically for local roads. So let's just look at Twin Falls, for example. We would not be rebuilding Highway 30, which we call Addison Avenue. We would not be rebuilding 93, which is south to Jackpot and north to Sun Valley, or the bypass route on Kimberly Road over to the freeway. This would be local roads. So we would use that for county roads within the county that have been not receiving their fair share. Now, that should change because of the increase in funding from our last legislature, but it's interesting that we're finding other places attacking, quote, local issues, education, roads, because they're not getting enough support from state and federal.
We'll see you next week.
We sure will.
Glad you got to California.
Yeah, oh yeah, wonderful.